one man saying that is fine. If that's your opinion and you're not in it, that's fine. But there is an entire market of millions and millions of people that agree that it is a store of value. So, you can think one thing, but there's also a market, and markets tend to become efficient over time.
We do know that you will always get paid in Hex on a daily basis. And that is truly the miracle that we call Hex, because it is trustless interest, trustless yield. Nothing will stop that contract from running.
There goes my hero. Watch him as he goes. Oh, don't want to get sued by the Foo Fighters. Sorry about that. Hey, everybody. Welcome into the Creed of Crypto live stream. My name is Boi Crypto. I have here with me, as always, my friend and co-host Crypto Ewok. Welcome in after our week off. Just had a week off of the show. Recharge the batteries a little bit, go on a little vacay, do a little snoozing, a little relaxing. But we are back here. And, of course, we've been paying attention to the market the entire time and have a shit ton of stuff to talk about. We got a lot to talk about in terms of Richard Heart's attorney's response to the motion to dismiss to the SEC in that case. There's so many points to get to there. A great stream the other night with Nuclear Herbs. He was on with Corey Costa and kind of breaking that down and look at some of Herb's comments. We'll kind of give our take on that because I think there's some really interesting angles to look at that some people aren't really talking about. So we'll get to that. We will get to the action with BTC and ETH continuing to just absolutely bleed and look horrible. We got Vitalik doing weird stuff on Twitter, ETH people fighting with each other, very weird times for Ethereum. And, remember, if you're an altcoin of any type, that's not great news. So we're waiting to see what's going on with Ethereum there. OpenSea, just today, the NFT platform, they get a love letter from the SEC, a Wells notice. So the SEC going after them, showing that the Kamala Harris, Biden, whoever it is, campaign is definitely pro-crypto before the election. So welcome in, everybody. Metastang, Jay Perry, DJ Moonboy, Jay, Take a Break with Jake, producing the show. Appreciate all you guys being here. Hit the like if you support Real DeFi on the channel. We appreciate you guys being here. Ewok, how you feeling this evening?
I'm feeling good, relaxed, refreshed, ready to get back at it. Markets have been still a little boring. I mean, yeah, there's a lot to talk about, but overall, still same sentiment is just kind of more sideways and more of the same. So yeah, I feel good. I'm ready to get back at it.
For sure. And I did forget about mentioning the poll question. So when does Pulse get back to the sacrifice rate of 0001? So far, oh no, it's actually second place. I was going to say we might have some trolls, or this is just how bad sentiment has gotten. But the final quarter of 2025, now down to 27%. So basically, many people would believe that'd be the end of the bear market. So that's when 27% so far, not a lot of votes, believe we'll see it back at sac rate. We've got the leader is the first quarter essentially of 2025, 45% have it hitting there between January and April of 25. 18% say this fall still, which I think that's probably going to tick up as the show goes on. I think some people still think that. But again, things can really turn on a dime in crypto. And even though everything seems like, gloom, doom, horrible right now, I mean, we could see that this fall. We'll get into that a little bit more. And then the laggard at 8% is May to August of 25. I mean, basically, if you're in 25, I mean, that's a big statement if you're in late 25 versus any time near now. So we'll get into that when we look at the PulseChain prices. But let's start with BTC and ETH. BTC recently did flip green on the monthly after just a horrific event. I think it was August 4th, like that Saturday or Sunday, when everything happened with Japan and a lot of the global markets and stuff like that, when everything just absolutely tanked and put us in the predicament that we're in right now. Ethereum going the whole way down to 2,100 that day, and really has only rallied up to about 27 maybe or something, maybe 28 since then, and right now sits at about 25, I think. So we'll look at that in a minute. While Vitalik also dumps many of their tokens. ETH still horrible versus BTC, but BTC now back down just after flipping green the other day. Shows you even with Bitcoin. I mean, nobody here thinks that Bitcoin's going to do a 10x this cycle or anything like that, but the volatility, is still there. I mean, in the short term. So we're seeing it. It was just over 64 up to 65K the other day, flipping green on the monthly. Now back down below 60K. So yeah, we're still kind of crabbing along here. This is we've seen BTC in this channel for some time, just under 59K right now. ETH just over 2,500. It went down into the 24s yesterday when Vitalik dumped on everybody. Yeah, what do you make? I guess we'll start with Bitcoins right now, Ewok, and time frame of everything. How does the cycle line up, and then we can look into ETH and what a travesty it's been as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, at least there are some support spots here getting held, right around the 57,000, 58,000 mark. And, you are getting higher lows at least. We keep seeing a candle that dips down in here and then it climbs right back up. So not too awful bad. And you're right. That was actually August 5th that happened, the dip. But yeah, I mean, like I said, this is sideways channel back and forth. It'd be it'd be good to just kind of play the up and downs here, because it doesn't appear to be encroaching on that previous all-time high that we had back in March, where it hit the 73,000. Yeah, just a lot of sideways. As far as ETH goes, it's looking rather strong. I mean, even though the Ethereum Foundation, which we talked about, which you mentioned, dumped whatever it was it 100,000 or 70,000 tokens. So, yeah, I mean, it's got a nice green candle today, pulling up. Let's take a look at the ratio. We are back up to 0.042.
Yeah.
So, ideally we want to get back at that 0.05, watch the ratio climb back up a little bit. But this is still in a downward trend. I mean, I've never seen it so clear. This trend just going straight down, and there's not much up and down about it. You draw a line here, and it's just, it's pretty damn straight. It doesn't look too good there. So hopefully we can bust out of this channel and start in the right direction. I don't know what kind of time frame it looks like, what it would take to make that happen, but that's where we really need to get out of this downward trend here.
That's really what it then comes down to when you see that horrible price action, is just what's the time frame? Like, is everything pushed back? Is there just not going to be an alt season, or at least the kind that we're used to this crypto cycle? Is Bitcoin finally the king and Ethereum's actually just been a scam all this time, like many people on Twitter would have you think? I refuse to believe that, obviously. I mean, Ethereum has a lot of things going for it, a lot of things built on top of it. I don't think that this thing has value. It just had an ETF approved. I mean, like, we're going to see Ethereum rally at some point. It's just that it is its third cycle. So, I mean, it is the first time that we're seeing it. It's the first time for everything, really. I mean, like, it is its third cycle here. So how will it perform against BTC? It's the shittiest it's done so far, really, in its history this late in the game. So, yeah, we'll just have to see. And talking about timeframes, does that just mean that we could see something where it goes into 2026, which I know Axis Alive has talked about many, many times? He's probably getting even more bullish on that idea right now, I'm sure, like seeing some of this stuff happen and things get extended. Could we see that, or could we just see a more upward violent move from Ethereum eventually? Or could Ethereum just basically be flaccid, chart for the rest of this cycle and, not even do a 2x, like top out at 7K for the cycle, which, I mean, honestly, even if it did do that, there's money to be made, frankly, but it would be a huge disappointment to many people. So, yeah, what do you make of any of that?
Well, I think what's going on is people are kind of concerned about the rates, about the election. I think there's a lot of things at play, and people are just kind of taking a step back, waiting to see what happens, to see how it plays out. Just being very, maybe overly cautious. I don't see it getting, I'm still not in the 2026 camp. While it may be a possibility, I'm just seeing maybe a more violent bull run, more condensed, I should say, not violent, but more condensed. Although, most time bull runs are already fairly condensed. I could see it shortening a little bit more even too. into a smaller time frame. But I really think it's just the fact that it's the rates, it's the election, it's the just uncertainty of what's going to play out, how if the federal things are going to work out, and who's going to take office. So that's my prediction. I still see a good year for 2025. But yeah, I think people are just being overly cautious at this point.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm with you. I mean, so much stuff has to happen in the macro environment in the United States in particular in the next quarter, this final quarter, including September, that we're going to see things change. I mean, like you just talked about the rate cuts and stuff like that. So it's probably a good time to transition into that. And yeah, maybe it is people just with some trepidation, like waiting to see what happens. Will the actual, the Fed cutting rates lead to the spending again? Like, will that start it up and the money printing and things like that? Certainly the incumbent, which I guess is Kamala Harris, even though she's not the president, but the incumbent administration, the people in power, the Democrats are going to want things to look as good as humanly possible before the election here. But looking at the Fed, so interesting point. Did you have any final thoughts kind of on the charts or anything there? Because
no, I didn't know if you wanted to look at the pulse prices first or wait.
Let's just talk this Fed thing real quick, and then we'll just get to the pulse prices.
Get rid of this.
That'll be its own thing, kind of. So, Jerome Powell said last week. So he said the time has come for policy to adjust. We don't seek or welcome further labor market cooling. My confidence has grown that inflation is on its path to 2%. He's not going to say stuff like that unless they're probably pivoting. Like, I mean, the entire time, like, Ewok and I were both here. Many of you guys were probably here over the last, since early 2022 when all this disastrous market shit was happening. When they were hiking rates, he would be he would never give any indication of anything bullish whatsoever. I mean, like, he tries to be as careful as humanly possible. So for him to actually come out and say, my confidence has grown that inflation is on its path to 2%. Now, yeah, he's saying it's just on the path. Doesn't that mean maybe they could still just hold rates? Possibly. But with the disaster that we saw that we already talked about on this show tonight back in early August and the stuff going on with Japan and all over the world, I think we're pretty much guaranteed to see rate cuts here finally. And the debate hasn't turned into will there be rate cuts at the September meeting? Will it be 25 or 50 points, with 25 last I looked being the overwhelming favorite. So I know Ewok, you've been thinking before they weren't going to cut rates at that meeting. All signs, including from Jerome Powell, seem to be that they're going to. And I do wonder, we've talked about it many times. Many people have. When the Fed pivots traditionally, you do see, on average, I think it was like a 28% drawdown in the stock market over time. Now, that takes months to play out. We're not saying that they're going to cut interest rates by a quarter of a basis point in September and everything's going to tank. It's not going to be like that. But with him doing it that slowly and kind of casually moving along, if it's 25 kind of per meeting, we should still have plenty of room for bullish sentiment for quite some time here if they're just kind of doing it like that. And then we will eventually see the drawdown that may come with that. But what do you kind of make of his comments? I mean, are you convinced that they are going to be cutting rates at least here in September? And then we can kind of talk about just quickly like the rest of the events, including the election, that's going to influence this stuff too.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, everything is pointing to them doing it. However, I think they still need to be strategic about it, right? As you said, when there's a decent size pivot or a rate cut, traditionally it's 32 or 34% average drop in the markets. Everything kind of has that correction, and it does take off after that. But I don't think the timing of it would be good for elections. So they do kind of need to protect that at the same time. So they're going to have to tread very lightly. That's what leads me to believe it will only be 25 points, rather than 50. But if they go at it hard and heavy, I think it could have an unfortunate, repercussion from it. I think it would definitely hurt the markets going right into election. I mean, I think it's between 45 days on average is when it kind of takes that turn, and that puts you right at the beginning of November. So I just think they definitely need to be careful about it. I think they'll do 25. and just kind of ease their way into it.
Yeah, looking at the meeting date, so it's September 17th and 18th. And then actually, you know what? Uncanny. So the following FMC meeting after September is November 6th and 7th. That's the 2 days after the election, if memory serves. I think the election's November 5th. So there's only going to be, there's only going to be one meeting prior to the election. So they don't meet in October. And then it'll be, Tuesday the 5th is the election. So boom. I mean, I think if they do the 25 basis points in September, you're not going to see anything but positive repercussions in the market. So I think they're totally fine with that. Then, whether they swindle an election again or something like that, we're going to see what they'll do on the 6th and 7th, or if, it's doomsday for them and, Trump does win with RFK and Tulsi Gabbard and this army that he's building behind him. So we'll have to see how that goes. But I'm bullish about that either way for us. I don't really care about, politics that much, but I mean, the fact that we could just get a modest rate cut in September and then there's no meeting until after the election and then we can deal with all that other stuff later, I think that's terrific.
Yep.
And then what do you make of the impact of the election? I mean, like I don't want to get too far into that. We've talked enough about that on this show. And again, the long-term effects of whoever wins, matters obviously, but, what do you think? We have had some winds of change here in the last couple of weeks since you and I have talked. I mean, we are seeing this coalition of like former Democrats, kind of people that are in the middle, that most of like regular America who isn't married to any extreme side backs. Like a lot of people down the middle have no problem at all with Tulsi Gabbard. I've been a fan of her since she was a Democrat, honestly. RFK has won the hearts of many. I mean, he does still have some liberal policies, but he makes a lot of sense on a lot of other things. Mm-hmm. And for those two heavyweights to throw their support behind Trump, I think especially RFK, like, because he was literally running for president. I think speaks volumes. And I mean, I don't know. I know the polling, I think you pretty much wipe your ass with any poll that you see. But, clearly you guys will be able to deduce who we are voting for. But what do you think? I mean, does that stuff make a difference? And do you think maybe enough middle America, I don't mean middle of the country, but like middle of the road politics in America, people may be swaying towards Trump that may not have previously?
Yeah, I think so. I think there are fans of a lot of those people that may not have voted for Trump. Now they see that these folks are getting behind him. At the very least, it may have them take another look, get another opinion or read something other than, your CNN stuff that's put out. Because obviously we know the media definitely plays sides, right? They'll talk talking points for one side, but not the other. And then, and then Fox News kind of does it the other way around. So it may at least open people up to taking a better look, taking a closer look. I mean, what still concerns me are the illegals crossing the border and having them registered to vote. I know there's a lot of states where these people are turning up on voter registration rolls that shouldn't be. They're registering at a processing center. They're using that as an address. They're all using a very similar social security number. And I know in Alabama or Mississippi, I forget where it was, there was a town where 4,000 or 5,000 of them were just removed from the voter registration rolls or lists or whatever they are. Because they were found on there and they shouldn't have been. So, right. I just worry that's why the border hasn't been closed. I worry that, they're getting them in somehow and getting them on these rosters that they shouldn't be. And, it needs to be fixed. It needs to be fixed quickly, but because we are approaching that date. So, yeah, I mean, I could totally see a steal happening again. I mean, they're 16 out of the last 20 years have been held by Democrats, and yet they still blame 4 years of Trump, all the problems on his 4 years. So it's just funny. I've always been a middle of the road kind of guy with as far as policies go.
Well, I bet 20 years ago you would have considered yourself a Democrat. Maybe because I did when I was
10 years ago. I would have. It's only
10,
recent
15,
that it's only recently that I've actually changed my registration. So I mean, so is what it is. We don't like to get into that too heavily, but
well, I think I'm just saying, the only reason I didn't mean to call you out, but I mean, I can say that about myself. And I think a lot of our peers feel the same way, which is the only reason I said it. I think a lot of people like in our kind of age group and stuff like that, and maybe a lot of people that have just lived over the last 15 years have had that change where they don't feel like they have shifted that much ideologically. And maybe they would have voted for Obama in the first term or something like that. Now they see themselves now and they're like, I can't even imagine myself voting for that party right now.
Right.
That's all I mean by that.
Well, yeah, times have definitely changed, as far as party goes. And speaking of polls, I think one of the most important ones is the Vegas line. That's the one you really want to keep an eye on because, they aren't going to just lose money on purpose. So that poll will switch back and forth as far as the odds go of who's going to win. So if you want to look at a poll that's probably as close to accurate as you can get, that's the one you probably want to take a look at.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. Makes a lot of sense. But either way, I mean, all these things adding up, I mean, really all we care about is, the money printer going back on and being in cryptocurrency. That's really what matters the most. So we think that's going to happen. We're going to see rate cuts likely here in about 3 weeks. And yeah, this election, these debates and stuff coming up is just going to be absolute, get your popcorn ready, as Theo would say back in the day.
Another thing that we don't want is taxing unrealized gains.
That's not going to happen.
Things like that are just ridiculous. And, when you get in the world of crypto and you do find yourself with a little bit of money, the last thing you want to do is approve this whole tax the rich kind of thing. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't go far. And as far as I'm concerned, prices of everything are just out of control, and it all starts with the fuel. So if we're not gonna take care of the fuel problem, we're gonna have these high prices of everything for a long, long time.
Well, anybody with a basic understanding of economics, I mean, the whole unrealized gains thing, it's like, do you know what you're going to do to like the stock market and stuff like that? I mean, like, okay, we'll just sell everything then. Like, if you're just going to do that to me anyway, I'll just sell tops all the time and not get back into the market then. I mean, like, it's going to mess up the market so much. I know that's a big headline right now, and we all should pay attention to it. And it's that whole slippery slope with government thing. Like, they take one thing, you never know what they're going to do. I just want to say that I think that's a Kamala talking point to try to, I don't know who she's trying to appeal to with that, frankly. I don't even know who would enjoy that argument, but there's no way that gets through Congress. I don't see any way that would ever happen. I mean, it's just absolutely asinine, although it is, I think, happening in some areas of the world.
Yeah, right now, I think it is too.
Now, it's probably going to ruin their whole economic structure.
Probably. Now, the good thing would be our RH ecosystem, because if you're going to tax unrealized gains, then you've got to tax or get credit for unrealized losses too. So we would all be in good shape, right?
Thank you.
We would definitely take those on our taxes for sure.
Yeah. So there you go. A couple of things to be super bullish about here in the fall. A lot of big things happening in the United States that, we happen to live there, but also, it happens to be one of the biggest countries in the world, and it does have massive reverberations. So we'll kind of see where we go here. I was showing that earlier from Hex Girl. All right, so let's finally look at the PulseChain ecosystem prices now after that little rant. Let's take a visit back to our poll. When does Pulse get back to sacrifice rate? Right now, the leader, okay, so everything just went the complete opposite direction since the show began as we got a bigger sample size. 50% of the voters say the fall of this year, October to December of this year. I'm so gun shy of being bullish anymore that I don't even like to utter these words, but I do tend to agree with that. I think that we will see that then, because it's always darkest before dawn, and it's pretty goddamn dark. I mean, honestly, I don't feel that dark about the PulseChain ecosystem, but the crypto sentiment, especially towards like ETH right now, is so dark. So I think that we're getting very, very close. January to April of 25 has the second amount, which makes sense. And then it's funny, like after that, people just basically give up. So then the next group is the final quarter of 2025. And then the fewest is the mid quarter of 2025. So interesting for sure. People basically, the overwhelming majority think by spring of 25, we'll be back there, which, isn't really going on way too much of a limb. So
hope so too.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at the prices. So we got Pulse right now at basically all-time lows. If you want to buy the lows of PulseChain, or you're pissed because of how your sacrifice went, you haven't been DCAing all this time. If you still believe in it, it's something that you would buy like a 6x or so by now. From now, I would want to be buying it now. So if you believe in it and it's something that you want to buy, and you believe in DeFi and what Richard Hart's plans are and things like that, I'd get into it, but you don't have to if you don't want to. I definitely am. So yeah, we got Pulse at 4 zeros and a 3,476. Dipped a little bit today. Pulse X, which has been losing ground a little bit. I mean, it's been so strong against Pulse, but it's been losing a little bit of ground the last few days. It's at 4 zeros and a 178. We have incentive at $1.69 nice cents. We have Hex continuing to just like get near its all-time low on PulseChain, 00428. And EHEX, I think there was a big seller I saw yesterday of EHEX at some point. Imagine that. I've never heard of that before. At 00112 right now. So, yeah, things are down there. You may notice, if you remembered being at these numbers roughly a year ago in this ecosystem, that your portfolio may be higher in value, though. And that may be because of the Pulse X ratio closing the gap, or because you DCA'd along the way, or maybe you did short Hex stakes, or whatever it may be, earned ink, whatever it is. But congrats to you if your portfolio is much higher today than it was a year ago at these prices. So, yeah, what do you make of where we're at? If you want to pull up the chart, we can look at that as well. RBTC says this chain is dead. I've never heard that one before. Yeah, so we'll kind of take a look. And one thing, you know, that people aren't talking about enough, and especially, I mean, this is also because Ethereum is, yeah, ETH is very dark. You're right, more Hex. This is what I was just going to say. We are seeing Pulse start to curl up against ETH. So that's the biggest thing. Pulse against USD is one thing. I mean, we're seeing consolidation and kind of doing a double bottom here, but the curl up against ETH is what I'm really interested in also. So what do you make of kind of where we're at, Ewok?
Oh yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bottoms. We've touched, you know, within this range, even though this one was just a wick back here in August. Clear bottom, another bottom, another bottom. So, you know, we're at 4 touches here. If it doesn't do something, I mean, if it doesn't break through this, that it's a great sign, right? I mean, if we still find support here, it's a great sign, because when you start tapping a line over and over and over again, eventually it's going to break through it. There's something to be said for us holding this level. So, you know, I don't know if it's limit orders. I don't know if there's a benevolent whale out there that's protecting this price. But it's bullish. I mean, even though we are at these lows, there is definitely something bullish about that, about tapping it that many times and not breaking through it. So,
as long as we don't, like you said.
As long as we don't. But I mean, that doesn't mean we can't. You know, it could go even lower. You know, I hate like hell to lose another 0, but I don't think we've been any lower than 4 zeros and a
3 or so. Oh, I don't really.
This green candle started back here. Is what I'm looking at. The very first candle is where it started.
Oh,
on one of the very first purchases. But I mean, yeah, I mean, you're looking at these lows. The very low is 334 4 zeros 3340. Yeah. So, and we've tapped that 3 times. So
I mean, we basically are there right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're close, but
in terms of buying, just to put it in perspective. Yeah,
absolutely. Yes. If you're looking at picking up a good deal and what I think is very undervalued tokens, this is definitely the spot you want to be in. And again, it's just all down, except it keeps bouncing off that level. So I think enough people are finding out about it. There's still, like you said, though, uninterested people. Who was it that was saying, was somebody in the comments saying that it was worthless or whatever you said?
RBTC said the chain is dead.
Oh, the chain is dead
pretty much every day on Twitter. I mean, you say that about pretty much every chain in crypto right now. So
yeah, I mean, it's not dead. There's a lot of activity. There's things happening all the time. There's still people building. There's still things going on. There just isn't a whole lot of interest right now, and it's showing. It's showing across the board. You know, there's not a whole lot going on with Bitcoin. Stay in that channel. Not a whole lot going on with Ethereum, staying in that channel. So, I I don't know. I wouldn't discount it too much. But yeah, I mean, I still think, again, staying at these levels is strong. So that's
Yeah.
that's what I'm seeing.
I think so too. And yeah, I know somebody had been selling PulseX like pretty heavily over the last couple of weeks. I mean, it's just one of those things. I mean, we've talked a lot about on this program the last few weeks when we were here about like outcome independence and being patient and things like that. And I know some people don't want to hear that kind of stuff, but usually they're the people that need to hear it because they aren't going to make it in this market because they aren't patient.
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, if you can't take it and you're constantly getting shaken out every day and just like hating your life, maybe your life just sucks. That's not really something that anybody else can fix for you. But
the PulseX chart looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's holding up rather well. We're not at least retesting bottoms or anything like that. So this is the USD chart, and as we've looked before, even the Pulse chart is even better against Pulse itself. So still bullish. We're seeing a little bit of a downward flag here, but it looks like that's kind of closing in on a decision time too. So
yeah.
I mean, this one's looking really good. PulseX against the Pulse chart. So yeah, these ones are looking all right. Take a look here at incentive real quick. I don't think incentive's doing a whole lot. It's just kind of
it's been kind of down here for a bit.
Yeah, made a nice run up to $10 and then has been kind of down ever since, except for that little run back up to $3. So yeah, I mean, I think the arrows are just getting pulled back. I hope that's what it is. And
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it is. And yeah, you talking about ink at $10 right there. I mean, that was just back in March. And I mean, like some people, I know it's 5 months down the road. Like some people may not remember that now. I don't know. But it shows you how quick things can happen. I mean, we saw PulseX. I don't know if anybody even realizes this, but PulseX was its sacrifice rate for at least a few hours of time, or at least wick there back in March. And it happened very quickly. So don't be caught off guard. Like, that's the thing. These times suck. Yeah, the whole last freaking 3 years basically have sucked. Literally the last 3 years in most of cryptocurrency has been absolute horrid, just goblin town. But if you're invested in something you believe in that you think is going to pump eventually, then I would be DCAing into that stuff as hard as I can. And I want to shout out Yo Mackie here, because this is something that we've been meaning to kind of get into. Not that there's much to say beyond this, I guess, but 68 cents to bridge to PulseChain yesterday on Ethereum. I thought I had the all-time low. I think I paid just over $1 a couple of times in the last few weeks. So 68 cents. Yeah. Is insane. So yeah, he's right. All chains are dead. Now the Gwei in general has been down, but I mean, like, yeah, people just aren't using some of this stuff. Like Polygon Matic is just, I don't know if it's ever going to come back. I mean, I just saw it's the whole way down to 50 cents and it's like just dog crap now. Yeah. So there's just not a lot going on.
Yeah. Let's look at the gas tracker here. I mean, you're looking at Ethereum. They've gone as far as 3 decimals now.
Yeah.
0.806 is the low. 0.906 is the high. So I mean, yeah, it's everything. It's don't get frustrated because ours is just, it's new. It's gonna look low, but it's the sentiment across the board. It's just a bunch of stuff that's just not doing a whole lot. So yeah, don't get frustrated. This is where the people that have hung on so long and have tried to make it eventually get washed out. And then they're like, oh shit, what did I just do, when it takes off? So, as much as I hate to say it, we're almost there. I mean, we've been saying it, we're almost there. But obviously every day we're closer to being almost there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. RBTC says we all believe in Pulse, but each gets it gets difficult every day now. More projects, but we don't have any new people coming into the chain. No new users, just new tokens. So I mean, that is something that you just. I mean, keep in mind, retail still really hasn't come to this bull market yet. Like we saw a crazy meme coin run on Solana throughout 2024 and stuff like that, and some stuff on ETH and everything. Half those are dead now. I mean, half of those that were like magnificent that I thought like I threw a lottery ticket into and got a really good price is now 50% down. So even stuff that like was killing it in 2024 that it theoretically in 2025 could absolutely moonshot are down right now. And I'm down on what I originally thought was a good cost basis. So, I mean, it's, you just got to keep waiting, and if you got to believe in the community too. I mean, like I maybe that's part of it. Is that some people like haven't really experimented with other chains and stuff like that to know that like what you have on PulseChain, even though it seems like, oh, it's dead and there's not a lot going on, there's so much more happening. It's so much more of a community than almost than really any other chain out there. But go ahead, Ewok.
And RBTC brings up a great point. So many new things have been launched that the value is now spread across so thin that it's really going to be hard for the core coins to pump, because the core value is just it's so spread out. So it takes that many more people to come in to be able to support all these new things in order for the price to really pump effectively. So that's while some of these things are okay, some of them are just influencers that claim that they were talked into launching their own coin. And
did you want to talk about the new one that just dropped, or
not really, but
okay,
I didn't want to give them any more attention than they probably need.
We won't, because they crave the attention. I know
exactly. So
yeah. No, I'm with you there, RBTC, and I'm not hating on you or anything. I mean, it's definitely difficult. Like, I've had really shitty days, here and there with it, so I understand. But as best you can, and like this is what I've literally had to do. I made a video about it on here a couple of weeks ago. But like, you just have to detach yourself from the market and just find other things to do in the meantime, and stop, having it control your every move. You just have to be more comfortable with like, okay, I generally believe in this stuff and I just need to walk away. I mean, I know we all say it, touch grass and everything, but you really do. I mean, you have to find something that helps your mind deal with this stuff a little bit better. I get it, especially if you're down bad from 3 years ago, like many people are. So I understand. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and we kind of touched on this a little bit. And apparently that 69, there's rumor that there's 69,000 Ethereum was donated to the Harris campaign, which
I didn't see this. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't see a whole lot of backing it up anywhere, because there was a number that was in a chart or in a post on Twitter, but then there was only 35,000 on the blockchain that showed. So more Hex, I know you had sent that message to me last night or this morning, asking me what I thought about it. But yeah, it's just strange. Vitalik's always been a strange one.
That's an understatement, I'd say. Yeah.
You look at some of the unicorn outfits he wears and things like that. So, he's definitely supporting the LGBT stuff. And so when he donates, it's probably for that cause, whatever it may be. However, it's strange that it comes out of the Ethereum Foundation for that, and not his personal. So anyway, it's just strange that he's mixing it up as a crypto person, as a crypto personality, a high level one, with a party that doesn't really support it. That's just it's tough to understand sometimes, but everybody has their own thing. So
maybe we're just not smart enough. Maybe we're just not as smart as Vitalik. That might be what it is. Yeah. Someday we'll be able to wear vaccine masks and stuff like that and get vaxxed a few more times.
I guess.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you guys are here and enjoying the stream, do us a favor, smash that like. We appreciate you being here. We do this show every Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Man, I didn't think we'd be this far into the show before getting to this, but getting to kind of the main talk about, is PulseChain the most important ecosystem in crypto? And some people might roll their eyes like, what are you talking about, dude? Shut up. Well, we're going to tell you why. Because more and more publications, more and more people are catching on to the SEC lawsuit and Richard's attorneys fighting back and how important that really is. And it's funny because people like to throw Richard under the bus because they don't like him. Meanwhile, they support like heavy VC funded chains and stuff like that that have nothing to do with DeFi or real cryptocurrency or anything. But, there are people out there that need to realize that we should all be aligned in this fight and that the SEC is going after everybody. We just saw the lawsuit or the Wells notice anyway, against OpenSea today, the NFT platform. So Richard Hart did file, his attorneys filed a response to the motion to dismiss filing on August the 22nd. The response back to the SEC, the summary of events and arguments. I sent you. Oh, that's not the one I wanted you to bring up. But I think there's the nuclear herbs maybe bookmark tweet if you want to bring that up that I sent you, Ewok. But Richard's attorneys filed 186 pages of exhibits in response to the SEC over 7 different exhibits. The SEC really hasn't changed their story at all, which is what many people expected. I mean, they've missed deadlines and kind of absurdly pretend that the price crash of Pulse on what would have been 7/31, July 31st of 2023, when their filing came down, had something to do with Richard or like the prices that day when it was their own lawsuit. They literally talk about that in there, which is just, you want to strangle these people.
Right.
Anyway, so RH attorneys continue to say that jurisdiction is the issue. I mean, they're really hammering home on this. The SEC didn't address it differently really at all. The actual oral arguments is set for October the 24th, which I know a lot of Hexicans are talking about going there. As long as they behave, more power to them, obviously. And that'll be the biggest date yet. I mean, that's where we'll really see the arguments as to whether this motion to dismiss should be granted, largely just based on jurisdiction. That's really all that his attorneys are going to focus on. Maybe things here and there will pop up about some of the claims from the SEC, no matter how like frivolous and fake and misspoken they are. Maybe some of them will come up. They're really going to focus on jurisdiction because that's what they want to just do, is get this thrown out right away. So yeah, what do you make of any of the filings so far? And then, that's the nuclear herbs tweet. I mean, he went real deep. I'll just kind of summarize what I got out of that first.
Go ahead.
So he talked about the SEC contradicting and abandoning suing over the alter egos thing they call Pulse, PulseX, Hex, Richard's alter egos. Also, his stream with Corey Costa the other night. Biggest takeaway for me that is something that we haven't heard about like a lot. Is he did say, talking about people showing up to the courthouse on October the 24th in New York. He said that people showing up in droves could make a really big impact actually to the judge, because this is just a motion to dismiss hearing. And he said that like normally when she would be doing these, it's to an empty courtroom 90+% of the time. So if you have like a packed courtroom with a bunch of people that hopefully are acting, somewhat normal and civil and quiet, because it's very easy to get thrown out of something like that. You're not going on to like a Jerry Springer, God rest his soul, set or anything like that. Like, you're not going there to be wild and clap and shit like that. Just go to hang out. Even if you dress like business casual or whatever, just go shut your mouth and listen to the proceedings and show that you're there for RH's team. But I just thought it was really intriguing that I didn't think he would say that it would have much of an impact. But if a judge, I guess, is sitting there like she's only human, and they're like, so the SEC, this agency that nobody elected, is bringing all these claims against this guy for defrauding all these people, yet why are like 100 of them here, defending the guy? So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I talked.
Well, that is a big thing. And the one thing that we do need to reiterate for people is to dress nicely, use your manners, keep it quiet, because the judge thinks that, according to the SEC, the judge will read that and think, well, this very smart guy took care of these not so smart, or took advantage of these not so smart people, right? I mean, we want to appear well dressed, well behaved, well, educated on what's going on, and show them that we're not stupid. Like, he didn't take advantage of anybody. We're here because we think this is a travesty, is what's happening. So, I just want to, remind people to be respectful and not make noise. And we definitely don't want to piss the judge off, because that could be just as harmful as it is helpful for being there. In all the ways that it is going to be helpful to see that many people there. It could be hurtful if people start acting out and talking and saying things that, when they shouldn't be talking. So I want people to respect the fact that they're in a courtroom, and you don't have to wear a suit and tie.
Right.
But jeans and a sport jacket would be nice to see a bunch of people that are well dressed and
Well, Corey Costa on that stream said he was wearing his wife beater that he wears on his streams there. So
I hope not.
Yeah, I mentioned it to him. He's like, "Yeah, I'll show up in the beater." So no, I'm just kidding.
No, I don't think he would, but
no.
But yeah, so that's really the big thing that I got out of that. The one thing is also how the SEC was kind of throwing digs in there about the price. Totally not necessary. And as you saw, I don't think the RH's lawyers addressed that whatsoever. Like it's not pertinent to what's going on at all. So
right.
I don't think they addressed that at all in their response or anything like that. So, it's just, I think they're just trying to throw digs in there wherever they can. And I hope they do bring it up. The fact that the reason the price went down was because the case was filed, right?
Exactly.
You guys caused this, not any kind of malicious activity or spending money that shouldn't have been spent or any reason of that nature. So,
yeah, I'm with you. But yeah, honestly, for anybody that is really thinking about going to the court date, please just make sure you conduct yourself the right way. It's a boring courtroom. It's going to be boring as hell for the most part until you hear more so like Richard's attorney's arguments and stuff. So just hang out, sit down, chillax, enjoy the day in New York City, and just chill out. Nobody needs to get routed or anything. And Yellowtail made me laugh in the chat. You don't have to put it up on screen, but if you want to take a look at that in the
I saw
the chat,
I saw it.
There
will be no dancing of coffins or anything like that.
No dancing on coffins or
I've spent time with him, and he's a good guy. He just gets a little loud sometimes on Twitter. So
don't we all? Yeah.
I mean, it's a personality when you're behind the computer screen, and people act completely different when you're in person.
Good point.
So,
good point. Well, anyway, a strong response from Richard's attorneys, and I mean, just reading all their stuff and how much they did file back. I mean, you can tell this group is very, very confident. I mean, they're not afraid of what's going on with the SEC, and more importantly, kind of shifting to the overall, like, what does this mean for the market? If you were to pull up the tweet from Richard where he linked this whatever it is, New York Law Journal,
New York Journal, this one.
So this is really bullish, and then I pulled up the article if you just want to click the link. This is really interesting. So SEC Richard Hart clash in dueling motions over $1 billion unregistered securities litigation. This is written by Michael Mora, and I'm really glad that he's highlighting this. It's a pretty quick read. He's just kind of, some of it's just summarizing all the events that we are already very privy to. But basically, he says, getting down to the nitty gritty, the U.S. SEC and litigators for an embattled cryptocurrency founder escalated their clash this week with over $1 billion unregistered securities lawsuit. Defendant Richard Hart is represented by several law firms, and he lists all their credentials. SEC further seeks to cement a role it assumed for itself as the global governor of blockchain technology, a role exceeding both the limited mandate and the bounds of personal jurisdiction, and the case should be dismissed with prejudice, which is what Richard's attorneys have said. Within hours of the defendant's filing, the SEC filed a motion in opposition. Matthew Gold, a trial attorney who penned the motion of the SEC, pinpointed 5 points that Hart asserted and doubled down against them. Now a hearing's been scheduled in for October, which we know. I'm trying to get to the main part. So Ishmael Green, a partner at Diaz, Royce, and Targ. Some of these names, where do these people come up with these names? In Miami, an uninvolved crypto expert, he claims himself to be, said that the rolling and its fallout could impact other digital assets because PulseChain is essentially a copy of Ethereum, and Hex is essentially Bitcoin, but with a certificate of deposit function. Just the fact that this green guy from this law firm in Miami knows even this much, I find surprising and kind of impressive. But he's talking about that. Then he goes on to say this provides a roadmap for anyone creating a cryptocurrency who wants to remain outside the SEC's enforcement arm. This case will go down in history as one of those cases that nobody saw coming, and it's very important. I think that's what Richard has been saying all along, and what anybody in our ecosystem has been saying, because this is the most decentralized blockchain built on the most DeFi principles of anything in crypto right now. And he's under fire. Now, most of the cryptocurrency world that are Bitcoin maxis or just do stuff on ETH or whatever else, just know him as like the clown from the last cycle. And where did he ever go? Oh, how about this movie he was in? Hex is down 99%. I mean, yeah, that's true. It's definitely true. But with these other things that he's built out, and with the SEC coming after him like this, why anybody would root on the SEC against anybody doing anything in crypto, like the bankless boys do, I will never understand it. I'm disgusted by it. But good stuff from Ishmael Green there, and I like his thought process, and I know we all kind of agree with that. But how much do you think he's correct there, Ewok, that like this really will be precedent setting for many things in crypto? You know, because we saw the big lawsuit over the last few years was obviously Ripple and XRP, which literally Ripple won the lawsuit. Like they won defiantly, really. I mean, going away by the end of it. The judge totally sided with them, and the SEC really got nothing but like a very small fine, I think they may have gotten from them. But yeah, I mean, what do you make of this green guy's comments and the importance of this case for all of crypto?
Well, yeah, he nails it on the head. You know, he talks about the PulseChain being the copy of Ethereum, which they still have not ever come out and said that Ethereum was not a security. They still haven't done that. But you know, if they ever did, it's a copy of it. So how can one be and not the other, right? And then you've got the comment about Hex being the better Bitcoin because it has the certificate of deposit function. Completely accurate there. Richard was very smart. He was very deliberate. He was very intentional about how these things were designed from the beginning. You know, even on the first couple days of the launch, when Richard was in the Zoom on the stream with those couple lawyers. And, you know, he was very intentional with the way he said it, the way he was designing it to fail the Howey test. You know, there are things about it, all 5 legs of it fails. So it wasn't just one, or it wasn't just two, it was all of them. So yes, it's very important. And I get frustrated when I see people out there just because they don't like Richard because of the marketing, the outrage marketing that he did. It turned a lot of people off, unfortunately. And they should be rooting for this. I won't even call them bankless boys. I call them bankless soys.
Well, when I said boys, I felt like I needed to correct it, and I didn't. So that's on me.
Yeah. So I mean, they're just, you know, people like that are rooting for. I don't know if you saw the little clip earlier today that was out on Twitter, but about them sticking up for the SEC going after OpenSea.
Yeah.
It's like
it's mainly that Dave Hoffman that cried.
Yeah. The one that cried on stream, like a little girl. So yeah, I mean, guys like that, you know, they're only out for a paycheck, and they only care about a sponsor. And it wouldn't surprise me if those guys are turning people in for the money, for the bounty. You know, I could totally see them doing it. I could totally see them doing that.
I think it runs extremely deep with those guys. Like they're like Mr. and Mrs. or Mrs. and Mrs. Ethereum all the time. And now all of a sudden they have all these Solana people on there all the time. And the main host, whoever, I forget his name, but the main guy with the glasses, to his credit, like questioned Dave Hoffman and made a comparison to what he was talking about with Bored Apes and NFTs, the video you're talking about, and kind of asked him point blank about something on ETH, and then he kind of got tongue tied. Well, you know, that's a little different than you're talking about. It's like, dude, shut up. Like
Yeah.
you want what you like to do well. You want like who you're being paid by to do well. You don't care, anything else. You just want to have eradicated because you don't have it,
Exactly. There are things out there that cause the price of things to go up, that just because that happens doesn't make them a security. So yeah, I mean, they just, I don't think they know what they want. They're more, like you said, they follow the money. Whoever's going to sponsor them or pay their bills, they'll talk good about. And unfortunately, it is a pay to play atmosphere when you get to some of these large crypto influencers. But either way, back to our original point, this is very important, and it does lay groundwork for people that will be creating things, completed contracts or completed projects that you can't be changed, immutable code, things like that will be so important moving forward. Richard was definitely ahead of his time when he created this stuff. So I hope to see more of that. I hope to see things that don't have off switches. In the world that we live in, when all of these people who talk about free speech and we could go on. We could talk about the Telegram guy. We could talk about like him or hate him. Top G bald guy. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Andrew Tate.
Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
Trump. You've got all these guys. You've got the Tornado Cash guy. Anybody that wants free speech or privacy or things like that, they're the ones that get taken down. And unfortunately, that's just the world we live in, because the tyranny of it is out of control. So we'll see how it goes. But yes, I do think this is very important and people need to pay attention.
There's clearly many people within crypto, if you want to even call it actual crypto, that do the eye roll and have never bought into Richard Hart. And I do understand. I don't understand it because I would always want to look further into things. But people just seeing the character that he kind of became like throughout 2022, and he's a scammer and this and that. And it's like it was just too easy. Like he was clearly doing that stuff on purpose. But they're so quick to discount and not pay attention to any of the principles that he's actually talked about over the years and actually implemented, that nothing else in DeFi or cryptocurrency really does, because those people don't care. They don't, like the Bob Lucases and stuff like that. They don't actually care about cryptocurrency. Like they're not really about like the ethos of cryptocurrency. It's just like, okay, Bitcoin's a new, they're just market guys. Like they're just, and I'm not, Bob Lucas is good at what he does, but I mean, he's just playing Bitcoin cycles and investing in Bitcoin cycles. Like these people don't really have any principles or anything about crypto, or about DeFi. Exactly. They're not even interested in DeFi, really. I mean, they don't care. So, it's
all about the bag they hold. It's all about the bag they hold, or who's sponsoring them or what kind of coins that they have. That's what they talk about. If they don't have it, they don't care. They don't even care that it's important to the things that they do hold, because, once one of these things go down, they could come after you next. And that's what people aren't thinking about.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. Nobody should be rooting for the SEC against anybody here. I mean, like, this is nobody that we voted for. They're going after people that, that, as we've always talked about, they throw a bunch of shit at the wall to see what sticks and, file the lawsuit and do the research later. And it's because they get paid the more cases that they bring. So the whole system is just set up in a corrupt manner to incentivize that, just to go after people. So,
it's total extortion. It's worse than the mafia.
And I mean, I'll clearly say that I hope Trump wins, obviously, and I hope they uninstall Gary Gensler, and I hope that the legislation from Warren Davidson and Mike Emmer, I always forget his name. Tom, right. But they've been talking about reforming the SEC for some time, whether that's political theater or not. I hope all that stuff happens, and maybe Hester Pierce gets appointed as the top. She's always seemed like somebody within that organization that seemed like she had, some actual sense. So who knows? I guess we'll just have to see what happens. But for now, we're stuck with this administration who's really pro crypto and the different platforms that they're attacking. So I don't know if you had any final thoughts about that, or if you want to. I kind of want to get into this Hex God Whale thing real quick that we've been putting off a couple of weeks here.
Okay.
All right, let's do that. So when I tweeted out the show today, I talked about Hex making a comeback. And on one of our videos, we had a couple. I had a couple of videos from streams from ours from a couple of months back where we were talking about like Hex staking strategies and how to do a staking ladder and stuff like that, and just going back to basics of Hex and everything. Because many people, like a lot of people, we've talked about this, but a lot of people are just kind of here for PulseChain now, and that's fine. I mean, they're interested in the blockchain, and PulseX, I think, is kind of I'm not comparing it to Hex in terms of what it does. It's not even the same thing at all. I'm just comparing it to, I think it's probably Richard's new best shiny object of this cycle, PulseX probably, as being a DEX with a buy and burn, with a lot of other, things that can be turned on as the market goes on for PulseX. Mm-hmm. But Hex obviously was all the rage last bull cycle, did a 10,000X. You can lock up tokens for up to 15 years, however much you want to do it. It's about acquiring T-shares to be able to print more Hex along the way, and all these things. But we saw the Hex God Whale, which, again, I don't want to take anything for granted. I mean, like, some people here in the chat may have been here 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and they know about this stuff. Some people may not, but I'll let you kind of color in who the God Whale was real quick in a moment. But he, a couple of weeks ago now, we've had this as a running topic, but he staked hundreds of T-shares on, it was August 9th, I saw, across Ethereum and Pulse, so Hex on both chains. And he kind of spread them all out for roughly a year or less from that time. So this is a guy who is, again, a whale when it comes to Hex, and he just stakes tons and tons of Hex out to August of 25, and then I think the whole way into, from early May of 2025 to August 2025. So he kind of tapered it off there, meaning that, he seems to be a smart guy, a gaff donation to Bank X aside anyway. But he has Hex stakes, basically huge ones from early May of 25 to August 25. And that could be indicative of him thinking that that's when the bull market could be coming to an end, or at least he can get out at that time or something if he wants to before the end of the bull market, maybe late 2025. So I'm curious what you make of this, what you know about the God Whale's history and stuff like that. But I think it's super interesting and something to pay attention to, that, I mean, if this guy is this bullish, like, you don't have to lock up these tokens. I mean, and again, he is bigger pays better is one of the things when it comes to Hex staking. Well, his stakes are definitely very big, so he's making a good bid on them. But it's certainly something to pay attention to with this huge of a bag. So what do you make of all that, Ewok?
Yeah, well, so let's give a little history on God Whale himself, in case those who don't know where this guy came from. When you look at the Hex chart, this is the Hex chart back here from the beginning. The bottom was down here, 0.00, what was it, 4 zeros, 5655 was the very bottom. And then after a couple months, right about here in April, you see this candle right here. Yeah. This was pretty much created from the God Whale. And everybody was like, "Oh, it's just Richard Hart. It's Richard playing games." But when it was looked into, there were some Genesis Ethereum, a lot of them from this wallet. And we all know that Richard was a staunch Bitcoin person back then who thought Ethereum was garbage. He actually left videos up of him saying things like that. So he was not an original investor in Ethereum. So, we know it was somebody different, was a different entity. And this candle from the 0.0005 all the way up into the basically lost to 0.004, 005, from 0005 to 005 was responsible from him pretty much. And it never came back until now.
Yeah, right.
And in fact, I don't even know if we have retraced to that level or yeah, we did. Okay. But anyway, pre-God Whale now. But that was the cause of it. So this guy has tons and tons of Ethereum. He also has tons and tons of Quattro Cinco stakes, 5555. And yeah, I did see the other day that he put some of these out, pretty large ones, and timed them into early May, somewhere in between there. I think he is timing it. I think he's probably earning some yield. He's not really sold a whole lot. Like you said, he did screw up on the Bank X thing. I'm very surprised that at these prices he didn't buy it back, because when he sacrificed those stuff for Bank X, it was much higher. He got a much better value, and at that point it was probably the right call. But I don't know what the Bank X tokens are doing or anything like that. I have no idea. I was very surprised to see that he didn't buy his stuff back at that point, which I kind of thought he would do. But either way, I think he is playing the market. He is a mostly wise investor, and has done a lot of good. We know Godwill has made some big donations to different things. I know. I think one of the things, or two of the things that Maddie was doing, where he was raising money for certain different things, Godwill donated some too. So mostly benevolent character, in the ecosystem. And he's got very, very large bags, and he's sold very, very little. So again, I know he's got many 5555 stakes. So he does believe in it long term, which is good. But it never hurts to cover yourself for these short terms and try and play that timing thing. So that's all I think it really is. I was talking to you about this possibly having Crispy on a stream with us to talk more about the Hex and how the T-share rate is really falling off. Like, there is so very little at this point that is out for the 15 years. And I think it would take you, 30 T-shares in that year to become a dolphin, which right now I believe is over 1,000 T-shares to become a dolphin. So to put your stuff out into the future with stuff right now, you can actually move up the charts because there's so little out there. Now, the number of stakers has been going up the last month. The number of wallets has been going up, and the average stake length is also going up. But if you look out 15 years, it's pretty sparse, which means the payout per T-share at that point could be crazy numbers. Like, it's very interesting to think about, and that's why I said I'd like to have Crispy on, depending on what we're doing and what we have scheduled, maybe next week or the week after, whatever, to talk about this stuff, because it is quite fascinating to see where the taper off is, for some of these people who may want to play a little bit longer of a game.
Yeah, I think so too. It's really interesting to see. And I do wonder, we've talked about this here and there. And I know, like, anybody talking about long-term Hex staking, you mostly do get flamed by people at this point, obviously, because the prices are down so much and they weren't around for the beginnings of Hex. But I do wonder, like, because there has been like shiny new toys this cycle, and they've really come in the form of memes, which is fine. I mean, and if people want to do that, I've done it. I mean, I think that's totally fine if people want to get into that. But I mean, they may hold value over time and be fun and everything, but I don't know if they have, maybe they do as a collective, but any individual meme doesn't really have like the sticking power of like a smart contract, like an investment contract of some type. You know what I mean? For somebody who's really serious, and doesn't want to be like, okay, what chain do I going to get on today? Like a crack addict to like figure out what memes maybe. And again, I am basically for memes as much as I am for, DeFi, cold DeFi smart contracts. So I don't have a dog in the fight, and I like both. But I am just starting to wonder at some point, this market, and still years down the road is going to start slowing down, more and more and more. And Hex is a smart contract that isn't going away. It can't be turned off. It's DeFi. It's on the blockchain. You interact with the contract, and that's all you do. I just wonder when attention is going to start coming more to this stuff, because we need protocols like this with a cheaper way to transact that aren't holding dirty fiat, and people are going to actually come to it as a real investment vehicle, when they aren't as afraid of volatility and not understanding how to do it and stuff like that. I just think that there's been so little legitimate. I'm trying to be careful here because I'm not just shitting. I'm not trying to shit on memes. I'm just saying there's been so little legitimate innovations this cycle as opposed to last, when there was like a lot of the DeFi trash, but a lot of good DeFi too, that I'm just wondering, like, when will people start to realize what some of these things are and interact with them more again? Because what do we have to show for this cycle so far other than like some AI grifts, and stuff like that?
Well, I think it's going to take green candles again, and then I really think this is going to be a very cyclical thing. I think green candles are going to entice people to lock this up into the future because they see we know what it's done, right? We know it's made it to 55 cents, 54 cents. We know what it can do. And when those type of prices happen, you understand the yield. That's why I highlighted checks my pulse. 100,000 hex right now. I'm guessing it's going to be more than 300,000 hex in 10 years. You're going to probably, that's only 30%. I'm guessing you're probably going to be closer to 500,000 or 600,000 because the T-share falls off. The longer out you go, you get more credit for your T-shares. The hex per T-share daily rate goes up every year. And you're also going to hit the halfway point to the 5555s, which means people can emergency end stake, which loses all of their big payday bonuses, which half of that goes back to the stakers. Right. So, I'm thinking that 100,000 hex right now for 10 years will probably be 6, if not 700,000 hex by the end of the. Yeah. But and if you go 15 years, you could probably 10x that. It would be my guess with all the penalties and everything else, and just the way that the rate goes up.
And in terms of price appreciation, like, okay, what if somebody a doubter or naysayer might say like, well, I'm never going to see the gains that the original hexagons did or something like that. Well, let's say you don't. Let's say you never do, even though hex on PulseChain is at an all-time low pretty much right now for you to get, and you can see where that goes. You may not, but if you can throw out what he's talking about, 100K hex right now, that's $400 on PulseChain.
Yeah.
It's $150 on ETH. So I mean, that's pretty easy to accomplish right now. And if you wanted to do that, we're not telling anybody what to do. I mean, obviously, but if you wanted to do that and take a punt on a few of them like that, I mean, do you actually think the hex price is going to go down more over time?
No.
Like, do you actually think now maybe any arbitrary date in the future, it could be lower than any other date. Yeah. But I mean, like over time, if you're talking like 5-10 years in the making and stuff like that, even if the gains are depressed, I mean, you look at a chain like Tron right now, for example, that's like getting all this action with memes weirdly out of nowhere. But I mean, it's one of those chains that people are like, it's, Justin Sun doesn't care, it's trash, whatever. And now all of a sudden it's like doing okay this cycle. It's like, no, it's not blowing off tops every single cycle or anything like that. But with Hex, because it's a smart contract where you're printing all this other Hex, if all it does is just, make moderate highs in each bull cycle, and I don't even know that that's what it's going to do, but that could be very worth it for you way down the road. The further out the stakes are and stuff like that, if you are open to it.
Yeah, it could be very well worth it. And even if it doesn't go up, who's opposed to making that kind of 40-50% profit? You know what I mean? At the very worst, we don't think it's going to go much lower. Especially in 2 cycles, I don't think it's going to die, only because I don't think it's Richard's baby.
Yeah.
And we all know he's in it for the glory. He's not going to let that die. It will eventually get traction. And I think, once this case is over, again, who knows how long it'll take, I think you're going to see a different take on this. I think people will actually finally open up and look. It's also brand recognition. You've got this Tagashi, whatever the hell his name is, talking shit about the chain, right? A lot of people are hearing Hex and PulseChain for the very first time. Sometimes it takes 5-6 times for someone to hear it and be like, all right, what is this thing? I keep hearing about it.
Yeah.
Yep. I need to look into it. These are the type of things that no matter whether it's good advertisement, bad advertisement, it's still brand recognition. And people are still hearing it, right? Over and over and over again. Who is this Richard Hart guy? What is this Hex? What is this PulseChain? Why is this bunch of crazy people keep replying in my posts when I say something? A lot of times that's what it is. He's doing it because he knows how crazy these Pulsicans and Hexicans are. It's engagement farming essentially for him, but it's good for us because there is no such thing as bad advertisement in my mind.
Yeah, I am with you 100% on that point. And something you said a minute ago, too, I want to highlight. Frank Molina was talking about this the other day, and I could not agree with him more. And, people do this in TradFi all the time. But you mentioned, it's Richard's baby and all these things. That is some people want to be like, oh, okay, who gives a shit, whatever. That's a valid reason to want to invest in something. I mean, you look at Elon Musk. I mean, his companies and things like that, maybe you don't agree with everything about them or something like that. But if you look at the guy and you look at the strength and mental fortitude of a guy like Elon Musk, do you want to put your chips behind that guy? It's kind of the same thing with Richard Hart. No, it's not just as simple as oh, I think that he'll buy his own stock or I think he'll buy his own tokens or whatever. It's it's not as simple as that. It's this guy's not fucking going away. He is.
But it could be. It could be that simple.
I'm just saying it's not sitting and hoping that they buy their tokens only. It's also this guy is determined, like you mentioned glory and his fight for the FCC. He clearly is trying to go in there with a Superman cape on. You know what I mean? He's really wanting to win this for the good of cryptocurrency and for all the principles he believes in. I'm going to put my fucking chips behind that guy. You know what I mean?
We've seen him from the beginning. Some of the things that he's always preached, he hasn't changed. He hasn't, other than the funny suits and top hat, his messaging has always remained the same. Mm-hmm. He's always been about freedom fighting. He's always been about, privacy and those type of things and how important they are. And if he would have just stayed that weird Richard in the top hat, I don't know if people would have started to catch on to this crazy guy, because like I said, I do think the outrage marketing turned a lot of people off. Talking about his D and all that
Red
stuff.
Red Bull can.
I think a lot of that turned people off. However, his follower count
turned me on.
Wow, good for you. His follower count tripled. So he did get a following from it. It worked. At the same time, did it turn more people off than attracted him? I'm not sure, and I don't think he knows quite yet either. He did eventually say, when it's not working anymore, I'll pivot, and he did that. So again, I'm putting my chips behind that guy too, because he's been the same Richard Hart ever since. His pledge has not changed for what he's out to do. He's out to be the greatest crypto founder ever. He wants to have the best appreciating assets ever, which means he's got several million X to go, because right now Bitcoin is at 5.7 million X from its all-time low. So he's got a ways to go, and he is in it for the glory. So that's where I'm putting my chips.
Yeah, that was really my point. Is there's no, why is it a problem to back the person you believe in, the person that you're investing into? I mean, it's a valid thing. People do it in TradFi as well. That was kind of just my point there. So, awesome though, to round it back to the beginning, the God whale stuff and him punting the hex stakes out deep into 2025. Yeah, I think there's a lot to be bullish about. I don't really want to get into any other topics at this point tonight. I think we covered most of the main stuff. You mentioned the Tekashi 6ix9ine thing. I agree with you 100%. Regardless, I mean, he is a dope, I guess. I don't really know much about him, but I'm of the same belief as you. It's like, any kind of brand growth is brand growth. And again, the more people see something, the more likely they're going to check it out and stuff like that. So I'm fully behind it. I don't care about the guy. I'm not like supporting him in any way or retweeting him and stuff like that. Maybe I retweeted one of his tweets. I don't remember. But I'm with you. If somebody's talking good about something that you are behind in marketing, so be it. Or even if they're talking bad, I don't give a shit. Like, let it be out there, So
yeah, agree.
All right. Well, this has been a great stream. Feels great to be back. We appreciate all you guys being here. Checks my pulse coming strong tonight. Hex Girl, appreciate you. Steve D, you just checked in. What's up? DJ and Moonboy, of course. Yellowtail, you had a lot of good stuff. Fast Abdul was here. More Hex. Appreciate you being here tonight, man. RBTC, really appreciate all you guys. We do this every Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And yeah, PulseChain, is it the most important ecosystem in crypto? I think we're going to find out over the course of this bull cycle, and there's a lot of crazy stuff coming down the pike. So even though markets feel like shit right now and things just feel like, when are we ever going to go up? Everything's going sideways. I want to kill myself, whatever. We have time, and let's go find something else to do and wait for these things to come back. But I know that every single penny that I have in my little pocky walkie is going right into the market. So appreciate all you guys. We will see you here next week, same time, same channel on the Creed of Crypto live stream. See you guys.
See ya.